Hello, Steeler fans, and welcome back to another episode here at the SteelerFury.com podcast. I am your host, Jeremy Kohlman. You know me as Smith is Smoking on the message boards, joined by the two hosts that money can buy, which we will never have. Korey Karbowsky as Korey39 on the message boards, and Will Masisak, you know him as Bradshaw to Ben and Accidental Zen on Twitter. And he has a unique moniker tonight under his name as well. It's hashtag Fire Tomlin. Yes, we are back to that moniker. We went from everything we were doing correct in 3 games and reverted right back to shitty ass form. So just what an abysmal game is, I think, the word I texted you fellas after the game. Just what an abysmal game to watch. And I don't care that we didn't have DK Metcalf or Calvin Austin. What we saw out there was an absolute atrocity of how to run an offense. I'm gonna let you dive in because you've got.
Oh man, really? You sent it to me first?
Yeah, it looks like you were raring to go.
I was just all I was going to say was it was a crime against football. That's what that offensive performance was.
Can anyone be that surprised by a Jonnu Smith run anymore? Or
shocking. By the way, I don't know if you guys were like this or if you're listening to the show, if you had the same experience I did, but I was literally calling out run or pass on every play.
Were you really?
Wow. Nearly 100% accuracy. And all you had to do was if Myles Garrett was left one-on-one with the tackle, it was a run play. They did that. I think they did it the entire game without fail.
Gosh.
So there was that. I don't know, guys. I want the last thing I'll say for right now is people were like, it should have been like a playoff game for the Pittsburgh Steelers. And they didn't take it that seriously. But here's the thing. It looked exactly like a Pittsburgh Steelers playoff game.
I was afraid that's the direction you were going with that. Yeah.
I don't know. You guys talk about it for a second. I don't know where to go.
Yeah. Well, just there's so many things wrong about what happened on Sunday. I don't even know if we have time to get to them all, but like
we can try.
Yeah, we could try. But like the big thing is it falls back on stuff we've been saying, for weeks before this 3-week stretch kind of occurred where it's like we played winning football. We gave Jalen Moore 12 touches all game. Yep, because that's what's been working really well the last few weeks. Dialing up 4th and 1 go balls to Scotty frickin' Miller. Like he deserves, like our 5'10" receiver is going to catch a go fade over a corner. I'm not saying he can't, but like, come on.
Well, actually, to be fair, I think that play was called by Matt Canada.
Oh, the ghost of Matt Canada. Gotcha. But yeah, just, and then the whole thing about, we're so excited to give Roman Wilson some action this week. 0 snaps at all. Like, what was oh man, we could go on, but I mean, here is the biggest stat that I'm going to take away from this, and then I'm going to give it to you, Korey. It's an insane stat. The Steelers are winless in their past 5 games versus teams entering 8 games below 500. We've lost to the 2-10-1 Bengals, the 0-8 Lions, the 2-10 Cardinals, the 2-10 Patriots, and now the 3-12 Browns. This was like vintage Mike Tomlin not playing down to the level of his opponent and not putting any effort into this game whatsoever. Korey, build on that, please.
I mean, I've been wrong a whole lot this year, but I hate to say that I nailed this one from last week. I called it and once I saw the Ravens loss, I'm going to be honest, I was like, yep, I can just, the wheels are already in place because no one would care if we lost this game and the Ravens won. Mm-hmm. It wouldn't matter. But honestly, I feel like that's one of the biggest testaments to kind of like what a head coach can do. I feel like, I'm not going to say he's just like, he's bad in every way, but we've got a big enough sample size. We've been kind of spinning the wheels on this thing in the same kind of fashion since like 2016. That's almost 9 years now. How many coaches, if they just had that sample size of 2015, even like 2015 to now, would still be coaching? Which you got to think NFL it's not for long. NFL stands for not for long. That's what they say. Mm-hmm. And I feel like we have to know what Tomlin is at this point. If you can't get your team ready, because either this would be like a playoff game or it'd be completely meaningless, right? But if you can't get your team up, I mean, Shadeur did everything in his power to give that game away. Like everything, he was throwing them up. There were three throws where I was just like, oh my god, like you know what it looked like, Will? When I hadn't played quarterback in 10 years, and then I rolled out to your flag football game, and I was just like just winging it. Like that's what it looked like Shador was doing. Like it did not look like he's a pro quarter. Even like the Harold Fannin touchdown, I felt bad for Kyle Duggar because I was like, you're not used to that ball being thrown that horribly. Like that was Roman was trying to give him credit on it. I'm like, he's lucky that Duggar was trying to play the receiver and not the ball because that would have been a pick if it was anything else.
By the
But
way, that was the best thing that happened to the Steelers defense in this game because it knocked Harold Fannin out of the game.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, imagine if Harold Fannin had stayed in the game a few more series, because that guy was like, well, first of all, he injured himself making the play because he made an incredible athletic play to adjust to that ball like crazy for someone his size.
Mm-hmm.
But sorry, I digress. Please go ahead. Not
oh,
that not that I liked Harold Fannin coming out or anything. Go ahead.
No, not at all.
no, I was just kind of. It's just if Tomlin got, I'm real curious to see what. God forbid we lose this next game. I'm really not sure how he's not fired. Like for you to have brought your team out that unprepared for a game that really should have been being treated like a playoff game. Like it should have been treated like a playoff game, and then if the Ravens go and win, then you can sit whoever. I don't know if there were discussions in the room like, oh well, if the Ravens win, if the Ravens lose, and we think they'll lose, then we're gonna sit all you guys down. So don't worry about the game prep this week. Or I don't know what happened in the building, but I know that the team was not prepared to play, and that falls on him.
I kind of disagree. I think they were prepared to play. Well, maybe the defense came out flat. I do think the defense was, as we've discussed before, this team relies under Mike Tomlin a lot on emotion. Like you can tell from the tone of the team in the game in the early part of the game what kind of performance you're going to get. So from that standpoint, I totally agree. They weren't emotionally prepared to play this game, but it pains me to think back to when I first became a Steelers fan with the Chuck Noll era, that team was they often played really hard and got me emotional at times, but they weren't reliant on emotions to win. They went out and methodically destroyed teams because they knew they were going to win. They knew what to do. They were totally prepared and they showed up and played. So even when it was a game where things didn't necessarily go right or they were playing against an inferior opponent, they leaned on their preparation. It reminds me of like disaster employees, like the crew on an airplane that when they're often like anyone else, they get bored at their job or whatever. But if there's a crisis, they all kick into gear and they rely on their training instead of trying to decide what to do. They just kick into some thing that's based on drilled and training and over again. So this team lacks that. If they didn't get that preparation emotionally for this game, then they lack the other stuff to fall back on. It's really an indictment of coaching either way. But I think the game plan was executed pretty much exactly the way they wanted to execute the game plan. The defense is going to keep this guy down. Once we see what he does for a drive or two, then we're going to put the clamps on. He's going to give the ball away, and our offense is going to turn that into points, and we're going to win the game. That's the strategy that they adopted, and they executed that actually very, very well. The only thing that really didn't happen was he made some really questionable decisions. He bypassed the 37-yard field goal, if I recall, to go for it at a time when, it was obvious that points were going to be a premium in the game. That was a weird decision. Aaron Rodgers looked like he was just looking for the first opportunity to get rid of the ball on every passing play. That's not really coaching or preparation.
It kind of looked like ego, where it was just like, oh, I won't be the guy that gets the sack record broken on me. Not to give Myles Garrett like that credit because he was saying that in the postseason, in the post conference and all that stuff, but it really looked like Aaron Rodgers was playing to like not be the sack, like to not get put in the record books.
Well, let's not forget that his relationship with Brett Favre is a little bit sketch, and Brett Favre was the guy that got sacked for Strahan. So the big amidst a lot of controversy. I don't know. I just feel like they did what they wanted to do in this game. It's just that the plan was terrible, and the quarterback who'd been playing great for 3 games in a row, as also mentioned on this show, I'm from other people, not just me, that his last couple of years, he's been like this. He can play really well for a few games, but to try to get that level consistently is hard for him. And this particularly this pass protection thing, like the defenses, the Pittsburgh defense, kryptonite is a mobile quarterback. The Pittsburgh Steelers offense kryptonite is pass rush. So if they get concerned that they don't have the protection to stop this team consistently in pass protection, everything goes to shit. If they have a defense where they have to allocate resources to running in lanes and not just going after the quarterback and creating mayhem, they look completely passive and get picked apart. And that's the dangerous scenario. I mean, when we get to talking about this week's opponent, maybe they catch a break that they don't necessarily have those two things. But man, the plan is just like so, it just you see what it looks like when the plan doesn't really work the way you want it to. They don't really adjust out of it. And maybe, until the 2-minute drill in the first half, and then the very, very last drive of the game, it's like they were a different team suddenly, just like we used to say when Ben went no huddle. Same thing.
I'm also not really sure how, like, you get to the end of the game, like you have a chance to go to the playoffs. I'm just not sure how, like, they've came to the conclusion. Maybe it was just Rodgers' ball, which is his own issue, but 2 fade routes to Marquez Valdes-Scantling. It's not like this dude is like this dominant 50-50 receiver throughout his career. Like, yes, he can run past guys. Yes, he's shown he can do it before. But, like, you mean to tell me, like, think about this. All the money that is in an NFL organization pays the scouts, the fucking equipment managers, all this stuff, all this money in an NFL organization. And you mean to tell me that the best thing you could drum up to go to the playoffs in the biggest league in the fucking world is 2 back-to-back fade balls to Marquez Valdes-Scantling? There was nothing better you could have came up with. Like, that's unreal. That like I've seen high school coaches get, complained about on Facebook nonstop for the same exact thing. It's an inefficient route. It's not a good player. It's a player who's damn near out the league. And that's what we came to on, like, in crunch time. It's unreal.
Yeah, like maybe first down, you run play action or you run an RPO for a fade route, but when it gets to be third or fourth down, like, man, what a poor percentage play. It's a little bit like the deep ball to Scotty Miller on 4th and 1. It's just not really a high percentage play. So unless you absolutely have the guy wide open, it doesn't make any sense to make that. You're not going to make money on that play week to week.
Well, and then on that play too, he misses Gainwell on what probably would have been a walk-in score if he takes more than half a second to maybe read a defense and throw where the ball is. Because you see Gainwell get a free release practically coming out of his chip where it looks like he could walk in. Like, he's going to beat the linebacker 5 feet to the end zone, or however far it was.
Well, another problem with the fade isolated to the side like that is it takes your field of vision as a quarterback completely away from everything else. You either have to commit immediately. I'm looking at it. I'm making the throw at exactly the right time. If you start your vision in the middle of the field, you're never getting to that read because it plays over by the time, the fade, the opportunity for the fade is already gone. So, yeah, I mean, unless you're a mobile court, unless you're Josh Allen, then, or Brock Purdy, you can roll out, you're mobile. You can move out of the pocket on a play like that, move away from Myles Garrett, buy yourself a couple of extra seconds and find somebody who's come open in the end zone, right? That's more typical of what teams look like on 4th and goal, and needing a score. I just, like, you don't have that with Aaron Rodgers, and particularly when he's hit the clock in his head is like one Mississippi gone, then there are only so many options you can do at the goal line. I don't know. I actually think the first down play was the one they threw. Was it Thielen? I don't know. I forget who it was or Scotty Miller that caught a ball at the sideline. That was the lamest one. It's like, what are you doing? You're quick throwing an out, a 2-yard out or whatever. Like I'd rather you throw it, take a second to hold and see if somebody comes open, or throw it away, or put it to Kenny Gainwell on the flat and let him gain a couple yards or something. So yeah, it just got weird down at the end of the game there. Like you said, was it Rodgers calling plays? Maybe, although in a way, I'd rather have him calling plays than Arthur Smith in that situation, because I don't really think his offense is built for that. With the amount of time that was remaining, it sort of took it out of his hands anyway. I don't know. It's so irritating. As you said, it was abysmal to watch. I'm sure it was abysmal to play in. I just don't I can't even imagine being one of the other receivers for the Pittsburgh Steelers in that game and just thinking to myself, like, what are we doing?
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to build off what you said on Rodgers really quickly. Like towards the end, I think it was towards the end of that, on the last drive, he's looking over to the sideways saying, I fucking got it. It's like, I've got it. Like, it's like, I've got it. Stop yelling stuff into my ear. That's probably what he was thinking with Arthur Smith or whatever. So I totally agree with you guys. I think it was just Rodgers' ball there at the end. But then, if you're going to run a fade, why don't you throw it to the 6'6" tight end that can actually like go up and high point a ball that actually moved the ball that entire drive to like get you into scoring range and like late in the game. Just it's criminal how little we used Pat Fryermuth in a game where we didn't have our best pass catchers out there. Like I don't know. Like you said, it was just a shit show
for you. Korey, you're usually very observant about this kind of thing. You just watched the game yesterday. Who are the Browns playing at slot corner?
I really didn't see. Yeah. Usually I'm all over that. I just saw Pat tearing up the middle of the field. Who was it?
I don't think it was just you. I couldn't tell you because we never ran three wide.
Right.
So he never had a slot receiver really playing anything. So
I was thinking, I'm
not even sure who it is normally, honestly, but I couldn't tell you from yesterday. I mean, basically, I saw Denzel Ward and the dude they got from Jacksonville who played
Campbell.
Jordan Campbell, who played an amazing game actually. But easier to play outside corner against the Steelers when you're pretty much only defending go routes and stops.
It's like when you're guarding playing a flex bone team. That's really what those outside corners probably feel like. You're not getting any rub routes. You're never getting stacked. You're never getting all this stuff to make it easier on the quarterbacks and receivers. I get that's not Arthur Smith or Aaron Rodgers, but it's like you're allowed to make things easier. You're allowed to fold in other ideas, and I'm with you because I just don't get how we got to the fade ball when I would rather have Kenneth Gainwell, Jalen Warren, Pat Fryermuth, any of those guys run like a choice route out of the slot, just like a normal choice route, like hitch, whip, or an out. Like that can't be that. Like I'd rather do that 4 times. You can even just put them out and then just read it. Yeah. Still Chip Garrett. It's like I just don't like.
They don't. Although to be fair, the Steelers don't really have a route runner for a whip route. Like maybe Scotty Miller can still pull that off, but
so like the way
not really his game either.
You don't necessarily need to be like that short twitched up slot because the way you treat it is if you have 6'5", 6'6" tight end or like Kenneth Gainwell or Warren where they're kind of low to the ground and can get out their breaks. Like Pat basically is running into the man at the point of contact and is like, okay, if he gave space, I'm turning. If he's playing in, I'm running my out. And if he's like tries to sit on my outside shoulder, I'm giving the inside forearm, bumping him off because I'm 6'6", and then taking it.
You answered your own question. I don't know how we got to that fade ball. How we got to that fade ball was that Kenny Gainwell spent the whole day chipping.
Yeah.
And if he wasn't chipping, then Fryermuth was. So it's like if you're allocating your Kenny Gainwell was literally their leading receiver.
Yeah.
They were without DK Metcalf on top of that. And their next receiver down was also out of the game in Austin. So you're going to allocate your best receiver to chip a guy. It's like, okay, I don't want Myles Garrett to wreck the game either. But if I'm going to throw it in 1 second anyway, what's the difference? It's like split Kenny Gainwell out and have him run anything.
It's not. He's lined up in the fucking slot. Like he's lined. Like the ball's coming out so fast, and you're still watching it. It's like he's lined up 10 yards outside of the box. Like there's no way. Like if he has a free run, he can't get there in 2 seconds when the ball's coming out. It's like you don't need to waste a chip on him every single time.
But you have to take a hit then. So it's like, okay, your quarterback clearly does not want to take a hit. We knew this before the season started, based on what he'd done in New York. So he doesn't want to take a hit. And even though that guy's out there way far out, it's still, even in two, getting the ball out in his normal 2 point whatever seconds, he's still going to be at risk of taking a hit. So doesn't want to do that. Okay. But why waste Kenny Gainwell on the chip? Like, I'd rather have, even if you have MVS in the game, I'd rather have Kenny Gainwell basically be your number 2 receiver with the tight end and have the tight end chip and run that little curl route. That's just as good to me. Wasting Kenny Gainwell on the chip, you're taking your best route runner basically and guy with the best hands on the team out of the equation, because since you're calling a fade to one side on the isolation with one of the best cornerbacks in the league, like, that's dumb anyway. Against a guy that you picked up off the street, also dumb. Like, you've taken Kenny Gainwell with a chip completely out of action because it takes too long to get to him. Even if he's wide open like he was, and chipping delays his ability to run anything other than just like leaking out of the backfield kind of a route. Yeah, all of that is just so dumb. In fact, I think I would have had Gainwell in the slot on the right side. If you're going to call it fade to MVS, then run Gainwell, underneath it on an out to the corner. To the front cone, because then you're still in your field of vision. And if you don't really have a fade 100%, Kenny Gainwell is going to be open and make a man miss. You got 2 shots at that, 3rd down and 4th down on the same play call. And I know you want to get the cornerback isolated, but if you put MVS out far enough and keep Gainwell close enough to the tackle, you still got plenty of room for isolation. It's not like just because you have 2 on that side, they're going to be able to double somehow.
You say you want to get the cornerback isolated, but why would we want that isolation? That's like, I'm not going to not that we have Michael Jordan, but like, if I'm the Chicago Bulls, I'm not letting Bill Cartwright ISO Hakeem Olajuwon. Like, that's not going to be my go-to shot. I'm going to get in my best dude's hands. And Marquez Valdes-Scantling is just that's not who we should have been going to there.
Seriously, Kenny Gainwell is their best dude. He's proven it all year. He's the guy that you can trust to throw them. He's going to catch it and he's going to make something happen with it. And I'm not even saying I think he's like a superstar in the league, but I would rather Kenny Gainwell match up against Denzel Ward isolated, because he's not going to run the fade against him. But I think he got more options and he might get himself open. So anyway, I just don't like, Marquez Valdes-Scantling has a tool in the tool bag. He runs vertical routes. He's got some height. He's very fast. It's sort of like Darius Hayward-Bay. Like, that's the ballpark we're in, right? So you're not going to throw Darius Hayward-Bay a fade because you just know that's not his game. He's a straight line guy, and if he gets past behind the defense, great. And if he doesn't, then
you've got some margin for a miss. Like, that's the thing. But like a fade balls, there's a lot of nuance. It's so like,
it's a very nuanced play. He's got to practice that over and over again. This is a guy that, how many fade balls has Marquez Valdes-Scantling caught in Steelers practice?
Not just that. How many has he even like? Can you think back to like the Packers highlights?
No.
How many times do you remember Marquez Valdes-Scantling? He's taking the top off.
No, against it with the Chiefs and with the Packers. Yeah. His game was, go route,
run,
skinny post, maybe running across the field on a deep over. That's his route, or a comeback. That's his route tree. Even the comeback, I honestly can't remember any, but I'm sure he had some, especially with Kansas City. But
I've got a fun question here. I'll ask Jeremy first.
Jeremy, you enjoying this conversation? Better ask him a question.
Hey, no, I mean, this is good. I like you guys going back and forth. You guys get a little more deep into it than probably what I would have done. So
if Taysom Hill was, for whatever reason, he disrespected some local business owner in New Orleans and they cut him, and we picked him up off the street on Monday, would we have won that game with Taysom Hill at quarterback versus what we just saw?
Probably yes.
Maybe.
Because we would have is Mike Tomlin still the coach? I don't know.
Yeah, no, everything's the same, but Taysom Hill's just put on our roster for this week only.
Yeah, well, so Rodgers is hurt. Mason Rudolph is hurt, and they decide Taysom Hill is going to get the start. Yeah, you have a better chance because you'll have some quarterback run mixed in. You'll probably run it more, which they didn't run it probably enough. They didn't, it's like they were sort of scared off, rightly so, that Cleveland was stacked up for the run, and Cleveland had pretty much decided, we're probably not going to let you run very much. But later in the game, it felt like they were just letting the Steelers run, and they're sort of like, well, you're never going to do this all the way down the field, so what do we care? But yeah, if you have Taysom Hill, maybe especially in like over the course of the game, he gets you a couple field goals extra just from just from moving the ball a little bit on QB run, and then that goal to go sequence. If he had been inserted for Aaron Rodgers' goal to go, he might have had a better shot because he's not going to throw the fade ball, and he's probably going to roll out and move the pocket and have a run pass option, and that's the kind of stuff that more likely to work. I don't know. That defense is a good defense. They got playmakers at every level, and there's nothing. If you had scored 20 points in that game, you could still walked away and thought that was a great offensive performance because that defense can play. But we sort of played into what they're good at. It's like we didn't really, I don't know. It didn't have enough ingenuity in the play calling, and certainly didn't take any risks. And then your quarterback was off a little bit. That's the only combination you really need. And Jeremy, I'll throw this to you. Don't you think this thing is that you quoted about, all the bad teams that the Steelers have lost to recently? The thing is, a lot of those teams just had bad quarterbacks. Like they had good defense. Your defense is pretty good, and they get a lot of pressure put on them because the offense is so bad because their quarterback's bad. So that's a recipe for success against a team that is playing wants to get you in a rock fight. Because then it's like, oh, your defense can go toe to toe with us. Well, then, we're not going to attack you enough to put up enough points to make this a runaway. So it's going to be a coin flip game, and maybe even worse than that. We're going to let you stay in the game because we are not really attacking on offense. We're just waiting for you to make mistakes.
So I'm sorry. What was the question there?
Well, the question part of that is, don't you think it's that statistic to me is more about yes, letting teams hang around, but the reason it's not even 50-50 against those teams is because it wasn't like their quarterbacks were taking a bunch of chances and making a bunch of mistakes. All those teams were like quarterbacks, good defenses, most of them, good defenses, and quarterbacks that are just being trained to don't take any chances, don't turn the ball over. That plays right into what the Steelers like. It puts you in good position to win a game where the Steelers are playing attrition football. That makes sense, don't you think?
Yeah, that makes sense. But I mean that's just what we've done. We haven't treated the opponent with much respect. Like outside of Myles Garrett entering this week, I think he's the only guy that we were like, okay, yeah, we can't let Garrett get the sack record, and then we'll just try to do our thing. Is like we're not gonna do any super game planning or anything. One thing I had a big problem with the game plan was, for as bad as Shadeur Sanders is, how did we not heat up the pass rush even more to put him even worse passing situations that he was already in? Like there were so many times where I felt like, oh, well, we're just going to play cover 2. And it's like Sanders can throw a ball into a hole in cover 2. Like, what are we doing? When we were just dropping people back and he's just got time in the pocket to stand there and actually make a throw. And maybe it might be his first read. He's not great after his first read a lot of the time, but it was just like, why are we not speeding him up even more or whatever? Because I mean, he threw some terrible balls this game. I mean, we got 2 interceptions, could have had 7. That's how.
But Jeremy, if Alex Highsmith hadn't played in this game, do you think the Browns win by 2 scores? What's the final score of this game? Because that was the difference. That was really the only guy that really made plays that were just stood out.
Mm-hmm. No, I mean you're right, but Patrick Queen had.
I'm agreeing with your take about the fact that they were passive in their scheme. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, but I mean that again, it kind of boils down. Patrick Queen tweeted after the game again, same old shit. It's just like, why do we keep going back to stuff that doesn't work? It's infuriating, and it's more infuriating that the players know it too. And you could just tell after that game that we didn't do enough schematically, offense or defense, to really put our will or play the game we wanted to play out there. We just went out there and played a game, not the game we wanted. I don't know the best way to say that, but it's like we just went out there and played a game of football and hoped that we win. That's all we did. We lined up and we just were hoping that our man would beat the man in front of him. That's all we
Howard
really
Johnson's one flavor, vanilla. I mean, that was like a preseason game almost.
Yeah, it
Like a
really
little bit
was.
more
It was
vibe
so
on,
vanilla.
from Alex Highsmith. Like that's kind of what it felt like.
Yeah, it was so vanilla. So, but I mean, like I said, we could be on this all game. I will say one more thing that the Darnell Washington injury I think really changed what Pittsburgh was thinking offensively. I think that they were going to play this two tight end set, use him a little bit more because he caught a few balls, before he, I
Yeah, he got hurt
was
on
it
like the second catch, I think, or the third catch. So yeah.
right. So it's like you looked and it was like, well, maybe they're going to use Darnell more, in these little 6-7 yard pickups, where we are in good running situation. Don't
Six,
you
seven, says
dare,
Korey.
Corey. Don't you dare. Son of a bitch. I'm gonna have to watch that moving forward with you. Oh God. We are not bringing that on this show, young. But anyway, like put yourselves in these second and third and short situations where running the ball is not out of question or whatever. And then he got hurt early, and you just know in the back of their minds they're thinking, well, crap, that's what we were really going to count on this game. I don't know what to do now. And it took Rodgers calling his own plays, with short dump offs to move the ball late in the game when we absolutely had to move the ball. That's the only time the offense really got going was when we absolutely had to move the ball. So yeah, lots of frustrations with this game. It'll be interesting here. Let's kind of flip notes here, unless you guys anything else you want to say about Cleveland real quick.
Not even Cleveland, just Darnell Washington. I really wonder because we've seen me and Will were like super fan. If I remember, I had him like top 5 on my board, like in the whole draft.
That sounds right.
And honestly, like he hasn't done anything in my eyes. Like now that we're actually giving him targets, like he hasn't done anything. I just would like to imagine, like we give him a lot of stick routes and out routes.
Mm-hmm.
If we actually like, I say we, it won't happen. But if we had a quarterback and an offensive coordinator and a head coach, where it was more of a, modern NFL offense, I'll just say that. Like if he got utilized a San Francisco tight end, because I was going to say George Kittle, but Jake Tongs just won me a fantasy football championship.
Oh, nice.
Nice.
But like if he got used like one of those, like a San Fran tight end, or just like where they let him stretch the seam, run some flag routes,
Well,
crossers.
the preseason game where he ran the red zone
yes,
skinny post, it's like that's what you're talking about.
yeah, like if we just let him, like there's really, if you watch him play, and I think where I'm getting at is this is going to be a massive loss because he gets us a lot of yak. Like he gets us probably what 20-30 yards of yak a game, and for a team that doesn't get that many first downs,
well, not only that, but his blocking is responsible for a lot of
that's what I was going to get to. It's like if he's at worst a top 5 blocking tight end in the league, like at worst. And then now that he's been getting targeted, he hasn't dropped much. Like he gets a ton of yak. Like that sounds a lot like George Kittle. Like,
no, I think he's played at a Pro Bowl level. He just plays in an offense where everybody, their statistics are never going to look fantasy fancy.
Mm-hmm.
But to this offense, you can make an argument he's the MVP.
Mm-hmm.
So you're missing that guy. That makes a huge difference in the upcoming game, which I guess you're going to want to segue into now. But to me, it's like if their team goes from Lamar Jackson to Snoop Huntley, and we go from Darnell Washington to Pat Frymouth blocking,
and Connor Hayward,
or basically Jonnu Smith. Like what you're really going to is Jonnu Smith. And Connor Hayward. That's a much bigger downgrade for what the offense needs to be successful. Because Snoop Huntley can still turn around and hand it to Derrick Henry. So,
well, one more thing, since you brought up a name that probably should get a little love. Connor Hayward actually played decently well in this.
He did.
He played well as a blocker. The little run he had out of the tush push formation. It's kind of cool to see stuff like that get implemented. I'm not saying, we'll do it all the time, but at least we're willing to show a different look off something like that. We've seen a few of those or whatever, but I don't think we'd ever seen the sweep to the outside like that. And it was blocked very well for him to get out there too. So, pulled off at the right time. I can't remember if it resulted in points. Did we get a field goal off that drive to end the half?
Hard to believe that anything they did resulted in points. But
Yeah, fair enough. Fair enough. That's why I was questioning. I genuinely couldn't remember. But anyway, shout out to Connor Hayward. He might be the only offensive player that deserves any credit whatsoever.
Yeah, and I mean, he didn't have a very good day punting the football, but Corliss Waitman's hold, and actually, but it was really Boswell's kick on the ball that Waitman dropped, and that somehow got it up last second. It looked like Boswell had to double clutch, and then he hit a ball that when he first hit it, it was like, yeah, that's going left, and then it just took a right turn at the last second.
Yeah,
I don't know what he did or why it worked, or if it was just he got lucky, but that was one of the more amazing field goals you'll ever see. But it should have been, it's always so routine, but to see it not be routine and actually work like that was amazing.
Well, it's starting. That unit has not been very clean the last couple of weeks, so I'm not really sure I'd call that routine right now, but we'll see.
No.
I know the weather wasn't good in Cleveland. It was very wet and all that. But
and very windy, actually. I mean,
NFL
30-mile-an-hour crosswind. I mean, that's not nothing.
NFL, you get paid over $1 million a year to play in 15% of the snaps. That's it could be a blizzard. You got to figure it out.
But look at all the guys who are Pro Bowlers and likely all pros in the kicking game and punting game. They all play indoors or in comfortable situations. So there's not a lot of respect paid to the guys who do that with weather. Mm-hmm. And not everybody's weather is going to be equal every year, so it's hard to judge that unless you pay attention. But I have a lot more respect for the Cleveland Browns punter who kicked the daylights out of the ball in a game where the weather was not particularly good. But that's why you get the job in Cleveland. You have to be good at that. They have even worse weather than Pittsburgh.
Like Green Bay. It's like you can't go to Green Bay if you don't have tape and bad weather.
Yep.
Yeah. One more thing from this past game was the refereeing just not absolutely fucking awful all ways around.
I don't know. My eyes were already kind of burning from the play.
I would say that they did what a lot of fans they did what a lot of fans claim that they want out of a game, which is they let the guys play in passing plays. They mostly let the guys play. The one penalty I thought was terrible was Dylan Cook getting called for a false start on a run play where he didn't start moving until the snap, first of all. Mm-hmm. And secondly, when you consider the egregious, it was coincidental with the snap that the left tackle dropped off half a step before the ball was snapped. But that was close enough to the action of the snap. But, like Dylan Cook moved, I mean, maybe he moved a thousandth of a second before the snap went. But I mean, that's totally ridiculous.
I mean, the one that kind of stood out in my mind was the offensive pass interference call on MVS on, I think it was Scotty Miller on a ball down the side.
Yeah.
Whatever. I looked at that and I was just like, I don't know how you call that.
I think that was a one of those ones where, I don't know, I was a football official for a long time. And one of the things they teach you when you're first getting started doing it is you have to be sure you saw it, or else it's better to not call it. Mm-hmm. Because a lot of times stuff looks like a penalty. And it sure looked like it was going to be that classic rub route where he ran into the guy, and the action that he took, which was to sort of turn his back and come away from it, looks a lot like when you run into the guy and you get knocked backwards, right? So I think that was a missed call for sure. I think that's a slightly more forgivable than like line actions like judging the line, false starts, offside. That's like the easiest job in officiating. That and spotting the football should be super easy. They make way more complication and they mess it up more than they should. Things like, there's obviously someone got a memo a couple of weeks ago in the refereeing department that was like, hey, we need to call offensive pass interference more, because they've obviously called it a ton in the last month compared to not just in the Steelers games, but in other games as well. So that obviously was a point of emphasis from somebody. And I think, that's a mistake. That's the problem with something like a point of emphasis is then you start calling stuff that's borderline or that you didn't quite see or whatever, because you're in that mindset that you should roughing the passer, personal foul to the defenseless receiver. Like they're trained to like call that stuff if it's anywhere even close, just call it. You're never going to get disciplined or fined for calling something too tightly. So
Yeah.
that's just a function of NFL officiating. I think it's like I was comparing it on a curve to what they normally do. That I felt like the really big impact plays are usually those, OPI, DPI holding kind of business. And I felt they were at least consistent. They didn't call it exactly the way I might have called it, but they called it consistently from start to finish, which is one of those things that really jumps out to me when they don't, So that's my take. My officiating corner by Will Masisak.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and then I just thought the Hayward hit that resulted in a roughing the passer call. I didn't think that was a very good call either. But
No, I mean it's crappy, but it's the way, it's the rule. Like
yeah.
your problem is with the rule, as mine is. It's a stupid rule. But according to the rule, I mean, what are you going to do? It's like I think those kind of things even out a little bit though. Like I feel like we have benefited from calls like that all year. But the false start when the guy's it's not even really a false start. Like that's crazy. That's like you have to be. I'm ready to call a foul on this play. Lord, I'm looking for something. There it is. As opposed to reacting to what actually happens in front of you.
Yeah,
That's
fair. That's fair. You know what the real question is moving forward is what are we going to do about a Ravens offense that actually runs Derrick Henry? Well, we all saw what happened. Or at least some of us did. Derrick Henry went off the other night when he gets featured. Shocker. That can't be part of the game plan on a normal basis, can it? But I will say this: if the Ravens are smart and actually stick to that, I don't think we win the next ball game. I really, really don't. They were finding big time ways to run the ball against a pretty decent run defense. I know they were down. Was this the first game without Micah Parsons or the second game? I can't remember.
I think second.
I think he got hurt a game and a half ago.
Yeah, I couldn't remember off the top of my head, but they were putting hat on a hat and letting Derrick Henry do the rest. And boy, did he, to the tune of 4 touchdowns, 210 yards. And that just like scares the shit out of me, because whenever they've actually featured Derrick Henry in the past, they've been able to do that against us. So the big time would be in the last playoff game where they put over 300 yards on us. And don't get me wrong, I know Derek Harmon is much better than what we've normally trotted out there, considering last year and whatnot. But one man cannot make up for, a 6'3", 250-pound running back and what he can do throughout the entire game on you. So obviously that's what I'm really worried about in this next game. What's something you're really worried about or something you want to highlight, Korey?
I honestly think it's going to come down to coaching. We have historically played the Ravens really well in these games. We run a good record on them in the regular season. Like that's like the one thing Tomlin's done over the past 10 years is win more than he loses, just point blank, even if it's not by much, and then play the Ravens really well. I'm gonna run with my predictions when we get to it later, but I do think that they're going to come out. I think that there's going to be a lot of pissed off players from last week. They know that they blew it. The coaching staff is going to be able to get them riled up. It's what Will said. I think you're going to be able to tell that there's going to be a whole lot of energy. Chuck Clark, former Raven, you always have these couple guys that are going to come down and lay the law down. I could see Chuck Clark being one of those guys to really nail Derrick Henry this game. Patrick Queen has been playing. He's going to be pissed off. I'm curious to see what's going on. This is honestly a game where Jack Sawyer, I think, should get a lot of burn. I'd rather have him trying to put paws on and set an edge than, Nick Herbig. I wouldn't like to be that team doctor in the Steelers facility right now as we are potentially going on, our 4th game without TJ Watt.
Yeah.
Tomlin might put that person on a freaking pig skewer and put him over in the press conference if he loses this week. But I would say I think it's going to be, we're going to play with energy. I think that that's not going to be an issue. I think they're going to be like really geared up to stop Derrick Henry. You're going to see everything they did on film, how they ran all over. They're going to have the scheme dialed in. They're going to know what they're going to want to do. The players are going to be ready to play. More so on the offensive end, can they do enough to just find points and like take advantage of the stops they're going to get? Because I don't think we're going to get rolled through on defense.
Gotcha. Well, what's something we need to?
I don't. I
look
mean,
at?
I don't think they're going to get the stops on defense. I watched the playoff game last year, and I watched the earlier game this year. And the earlier game, I would say that Lamar Jackson was still in the phase of his season where he didn't really have it all going.
Mhm.
So it was like you're seeing Lamar Jackson at like 70% or something. And they still eventually turned the corner in the game and were starting to take it to the Steelers on defense, and they couldn't really stop them for a while there. It just ran out of time, got a bad call against them or two, and that was it. That was enough to be the margin in the game because they started off slowly. The difference in the playoff game last year was the Steelers absolutely knew that the Ravens were going to run Derrick Henry at them. They threw everything they could at it, and they absolutely could not stop it. And the main reason for that is the middle of the field coverage, which for centuries I've been saying is the Steelers' big issue. Because what happens is you play cover 3 and you drop down an extra guy in the box to try to stop Derrick Henry, and you even get your edges more occupied with quarterback run or the RPOs or whatever. But then you got this tight ends and the seam. That when you play cover 3 or single high, you're leaving free goes for the Mark Andrews and Isaiah Likely. That is the issue. You have to stop both, like the tight ends and Derrick Henry in order to be good. That's more easily done probably by 4-3 fronts because they have that extra linebacker that can run with those guys. Yes, you have now difference at safety compared to what you once had. But I'm not sure the Steelers are equipped personnel wise to both stop the run, more or less right it, Hayward and basically the, A or B gap on the left side is what they ran most of Derrick Henry last time. And you get it just far enough away that TJ can't chase it down from the backside. So unless Cameron Hayward is resetting the line of scrimmage into the backfield on a consistent basis, they're going to have access to Derrick Henry in that gap. And if you bring the safety down or focus your, linebacker play in that area, then they'll run, Mark Andrews or Isaiah Likely up the seam on play action. And I think the Steelers defense has a lot of good qualities. Their ability to do those two things, cover tight ends and stop the run, I think neither one of them is at an elite level. They're both good and they put time in and they play disciplined to a degree. But they just, there's plenty of, in my mind, I'm seeing, Yaya and Benton just getting literally bent over on double teams. And that's not even against the Ravens. Against the Ravens last year, Benton and anybody else they put out on the defensive line was getting, basically bent in half on most run plays. And you can't win in the NFL like that if you have a commitment to it and Derrick Henry and you don't get away from it.
Well, I will say, and the reason why I think it does play a big difference is people can comment on how Lamar throws and all this. Whatever. Lamar is not afraid to throw the middle at all. That's like his best trait. Is
he doesn't throw the outside.
No, he throws
almost everything
touch,
in the middle.
throws with touch over the middle. Like he can drop it. If you look at Snoop Huntley, everything's a lot more like he can spin it. Don't get me wrong. But everything's a lot more like, all right, I'm going to see this corner open. I'm going to lace a throw to the tight end, or I'm going to throw this comeback or curl, like kind of save time.
See it, throw it, right?
That's a big difference dealing with Lamar, even at 70%, because he's very willing to just do the little lazy looking drop back. And then all of a sudden his eyes are up and he can drop something over your backer's head versus Snoop Huntley, who, I don't know what we're going to do personnel-wise, which is going to be something we'll bring up when we kind of loop back to it. But that's a big difference. Like you got to be at least 2 more steps open for Snoop Huntley to make that throw than Lamar, in my opinion, which is that's a big gap in the NFL.
Well, it's about the pass rush. You got the time for the pass. If you have TJ Watt of 2 years ago and Snoop Huntley, you're not giving him the opportunity to see it, throw it. He's going to have to trust the throws more than he's accustomed to. and you're probably going to get some mileage out of that if you get the lead and they have forced to throw. But I don't know that we're going to see Watt. I personally feel it's pretty unlikely.
I
I
don't
also
think
feel
so.
it's fairly unlikely that we'll see Lamar Jackson too. I still think that one, so I having talked to someone who is Ravens adjacent, the word is that it's a spinal bone bruise. And I can't hear the most amazing part of the story is that Lamar Jackson tried to go back in the game. Like I don't even understand how he would think it's okay. It's possible to go back. He couldn't even speak after the game. I don't know if you guys saw the interview, the game where he got hurt. He was just like, it's bad. Like that's all he could do. And so I'm not sure that even in 2 weeks that gets to the point where you're Lamar Jackson.
Yeah,
So
so
maybe you're Ben Frankenfoot, but that would be about it. So go ahead.
yeah, so building off that, I was going to bring up, the big question is whether we're going to see Lamar Snoop. That's obviously probably one of the biggest things, as far as if we choose to game plan for this game. That's one of the big things. Everyone today, John Harbaugh said, on the Lamar injury update, it's yet to be determined. He's coming off of a very serious injury, and we really won't know anything till Wednesday. So, I mean, if you don't, he went on later to say if Lamar is ready to go, he's playing. We're not gonna, sit him. Because Snoop Huntley has played pretty good in his absence. They've actually won. I only lost one game with him as a starter this year. For all the games that Lamar's missed, I think they're like 6-1 or 5-1 with Snoop Huntley. So I mean, he's been giving them winning football, but he went on to say, it hasn't been good for Lamar all week. Last week, we've got a lot of decisions to make just from a medical standpoint. So I would, kind of agree with you. I think it's way more likely we see Snoop Huntley rather than Lamar Jackson.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I I think the formula exists for the Ravens to beat the Steelers handily in this game. But there are situations where you want to complain about Mike Tomlin and his coaching choices. Don Harbaugh's coaching choices aren't much better. So I don't know. But here's the thing. Here's the real difference in this game more than anything is if you had to choose the team that has Todd Monken, as their offensive coordinator or Arthur Smith, like that's already a huge difference.
Sure.
You're starting off way ahead in that game.
Sure. That's honestly a point I thought Korey was going to bring up eventually. So.
It honestly, the article exists. It's my stance was out there forever ago, but we needed to get that one extra year of Matt Canada's contract. No, the one thing that I was kind of curious on, and I haven't been tracking personnel that closely, but I was gonna ask, the thing I would feel way better about this game, and I think we're gonna win, but from like a true matchup point of view, I'm blanking on his name, but who was that backer that we had from Miami last year? He is we had him
Landon
for,
Roberts.
if we had a
Roberts.
Landon Roberts in the back pocket where we could play him next to Patrick Queen, I'd feel much better. But that's the part where it makes me a little nervous because this is honestly a game where you really want to play like Highsmith, Sawyer, Harmon, Hayward, and you rotate, the other spot.
Well,
And
and then just real quick, because you mentioned this earlier, Malik Harrison, another former Raven, actually.
oh yeah, I forgot about that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but that's who they'll play. Those guys will
Right.
start.
Mhm.
Yeah.
But like
I think the issue is like their best look is clearly nickel, where they've got Ramsey, Duggar, JPJ, help me out on these last two. JPJ,
Eccles.
Eccles,
corner.
yes, and who's the other one they've been playing in
James
there?
Pierre, if healthy.
James Pierre, yeah, like when like that's their best. Like when
Oh
they've
no,
got
the safety that used to play in Cleveland.
Chuck Clark, as well.
Chuck Clark. That was the guy I was thinking. The former
Yes,
Raven.
so like
That's
Chuck
the guy that
Clark,
play.
Duggar, Ramsey, yeah. So and I think
They're
where
playing
they're
big nickel. Yeah.
yes, where they've had Duggar at free, Ramsey down at nickel, Chuck Clark in that strong safety, big nickel position, and then outsides JPJ, Eccles, whatever, right? Outsides. But the thing is like, you really would rather, you know, probably take Duggar off the field and slot Ramsey back then get another bigger linebacker. But I'm not even sure if we have a second linebacker right now that you really trust to go in there. So it's like you're not really built personnel wise, is what you said, Will. You have good players.
Because then think about those guys that you're talking about who are the run stoppers, thinking about them cover one of those tight ends. Like that's the problem. We need, if you're going to invest highly in linebackers, like to sign Patrick Queen for a big number, or you're going to take a linebacker in the first round or whatever, like Devin Bush, you got to get a guy who is more like on the Fred Warner scale or the Schwarzenegger scale, or like even Schwarzenegger on one leg, like he played his heart out. Like the guy was just too hurt to be playing. Shouldn't have been playing yesterday. But that dude is the dude you need. Like they don't really. Peyton Wilson is not that aggressive. He doesn't have the instincts against the run, and he can run like the wind, but he's not necessarily a great cover guy. He's more of a chase guy, right? Run and chase.
And we've seen in the Ravens matchup, he doesn't do well when you lead up to him. That's like the fatal flaw is that he cannot take on head-to-head blocks.
I'm just saying, you're Todd Monken and you see the film of what the Steelers defense is good at. If you make even a marginal effort to adjust what you're calling to what the Steelers are good at or can't or not as good at or whatever, then you want the Steelers to be in big personnel and then throw to the tight ends. You want them to get in that big nickel and then run it, directly at the weak spots. If they put Herbig out there, you're going to look for more stuff that's run at him rather than let him chase from the backside, that kind of thing, right? If you're paying attention to what the Steelers do, then you know, like you got to cut the backside on every running play. You got to mix in play action or throw quick things to the tight ends up the seam whenever they're coming sit, bring Ramsey down to the box, whatever. So yeah, I feel like the personnel matchup problem. Like I can't speak for the Ravens defensive personnel matching up against the Steelers, but the Steelers don't really adjust what they do on offense to your weaknesses. They're mostly just looking to, this is what we do well, this is what we can execute, and we're going to try to execute it better than you can stop it. So this same conversation doesn't apply on the other side, but for the Ravens, it feels like they're actually trying to put you in a dilemma. We always talk about like a pass route combos that put defenders in conflict. So you're like, okay, I'm the corner in cover 2, and I have to figure out I got a guy in the flat in front of me, and I have a corner route behind me. How do I defend that? And the way you defend it, they see on tape, and they take advantage of whatever you do because you can't really cover both guys. And this is like that. They're going to put the linebackers and our safeties in dilemmas, and they could, that's a pretty easy dilemma to put teams into. Like it doesn't require when you have Derrick Henry, and as it is, people get tired of stepping up in the hole and stopping him anyway. Like you're not going to get a whole lot of safety action stepping down into the hole and attacking Derrick Henry in the hole. Like, what are there, like 3 guys in the league play safety that are willing to do that? So like, that's the thing. You got to have safeties to, really step into the hole against the run. And you got to have linebackers that are fighting for their lives on every running play. And then you have to have the ability for linebackers to cover tight ends. Like, do we have that personnel? Am I missing something?
Not really. No, unfortunately not. I think you're on point with that.
And I don't even think Baltimore is like, this is not the best version of Baltimore that we've seen in the last 10 years or whatever, right?
No,
they're still really good at that stuff, man. Like, they got a 300-pound fullback who leads, who's like going to plow your linebacker into next week, no matter who you have at linebacker. So it's like, that's a legit threat.
I think about it like this too. And again, like I'm going to end up going with the Steelers this week, but just imagine for a second, if you were, Chuck Clark, you're 5'10", 210 pounds, you're Kyle Duggar, 5'10", 200 pounds, any of these like DB types, right? Especially the ones who have played a lot. You played a long season. Like you for sure, if you're in the NFL, you're banged up at this point. You've got this knee thing, you got this ankle thing, you're in treatment for 3 hours every day. And you just know that there's a good chance that you got to step up to Derrick Henry and they're going to run him 35 times this game. And he hasn't been ran to the ground this year. like Derrick Henry, people don't realize like that is a 6'4", 245, 250 pound running back. Like he's ginormous. And you're just like, you got to go all week in practice. And like, yeah, you're going to get like up for the game. It's a rivalry game, but like, you got to get all week in practice. And you're just like, shit. Like, I'm about to earn my money this week because that's like one of the toughest jobs in football. It's like,
Yeah.
it's like you're either the linebacker who's got to step to him one-on-one in the hole, or let's say you do what you want and you close off the gaps and you make him bounce. Now your 190-pound cornerbacks, 200-pound cornerbacks see him barreling down the tracks. It's like, ah, shit. Like that's just I can't imagine having to be like the defenders who got to like sleep every day this week and know that they gotta face that music on Sunday.
And like I said, you got a giant offensive line, who's out in front of it. Like it can't be a pleasant afternoon to look forward to playing football. To see, Daniel Falalele, and then right behind him is Patrick Ricard or whatever, and then Derrick Henry. Like you're just like, what your choices are like. You can't even undercut those guys anymore because of the rules. So you're going to get obliterated pretty much no matter what you do. So yeah, that's tough. I think Troy Polamalu's famous play against Denver, where he went low and avoided all the blocks on a screen pass and tackled the Denver running back in a playoff game. Like they probably they called a foul on somebody the other day who was doing exactly that because the offensive lineman that was near him, he stuck out he basically was moving towards him trying to block him, and his knee hit the defender who was going for the running back, and they called him for the low block,
Yeah,
So
I remember
it's
that
like
play.
you can't even do that anymore against Derrick Henry and his blockers. So yeah, I don't know what you can do. You can load up the box. You can play bare front and load up the box and try to take away stuff. And then they'll just, they'll pick you apart on the outside.
Right.
I just feel like any offense depends on some threat that's a big enough threat that you have to figure out. You have to always be honest towards that threat. When you have two threats, that's the thing. When Lamar Jackson's 100%, quarterback run plus Derrick Henry, whoever had the dream to put those two together, like kids, right? Because they're opposite. You're defending two things there that are very difficult to defend. And the same thing with the tight ends up the seam is still in play. Trey Flowers is still a tough cover, especially if you have a quarterback that can escape the pass rush. So all of these things are in play. Even with Snoop Huntley, enough of the pieces are still in play that they can be good. The problem for Baltimore is their defense. It's like, if they were playing the Rams or Kansas City even early in the season, like, yeah, they're Buffalo, like they're not going to hold teams down to nothing. They might make some plays late and hang on, but they're not a, shut you out defense. But that is for offenses not named the Pittsburgh Steelers without DK Metcalf and playing super conservative football, like,
or probably Darnell.
or without Darnell Washington. I mean, like that is bigger than DK in a way. They're both bad, but yeah, Darnell Washington is involved in everything they like to do. The tush push that they've been very good at, the oversized line kind of deal, the just general run play blocking, pass protecting, the pass and yards after the catch reception business. Because so a lot of those take a 3-yard pass and turn it into 7 or 11. That's different. You don't get that from Jonnu Smith in the same way. You don't get that necessarily from Pat Freiermuth even. Pat Freiermuth is like, you're trying to throw the ball to him when he's already 10 yards downfield or 7 yards downfield. Whereas he's not a catch and run guy. So it's like, I don't mean to sound like so super pessimistic. I sounded kind of like this against Detroit because it's, really Detroit had the personnel to do it. Now they had problems, they had health problems and problems on defense that probably we should have factored more into the equation, but they really outsmarted themselves. I don't feel like Detroit used the weapons that they had to attack the Steelers defense the way that they could have, which is a major reason that game ended up getting away from them. But I don't know. I feel like if those two teams lined up and played 10, if Detroit Lions of 2 weeks ago lined up against the Steelers and played 10 times, they'd win 7, So the Baltimore Pittsburgh lining up together with the personnel that we think are going to play in this game, that's the thing. I mean, yeah, the Steelers are going to win 3 or 4 of those for sure, but I think Ravens are going to win 6 or 7.
Yeah. Korey's got a big grin after that one.
Why is
Yeah.
that? Because I'm trying to talk. Because he's not like I'm not going to let me talk me out of picking the Steelers. I'm not going to let him talk me out of it.
Right. But honestly, I'll say the kind of big key is, obviously containing Derrick Henry or whatever. But the thing is, make him go sideways when he has to physically turn his body and run to the outside. He does not get going. So don't let him get, parallel north-south. Make him go east-west first. Now, and when I say east-west, I don't mean, let him have all these toss plays to the outside because, he can at least pick up his momentum that way. But if you legitimately forced him to go east-west, he's lost his best asset, which is his size, imposing his size. And he goes east-west, he no longer has the natural leverage of hitting you first rather than you hitting him. And the other thing is, and I don't know why guys have not figured this out yet. Stop trying to tackle the son of a bitch high. Go for his legs. You cannot knock a 6'4", 250-pound man off his path. You just can't.
Not even if the balance is one thing, Jeremy. I mean,
yeah.
If you've ever taken the knee from a big running back in your face, you would not be so as willing to go down and tackle the guy down there.
That.
All I'm saying is it's like the reason they try to tackle them up high is that like everything else is just a personal sacrifice that may be too much to bear for most people. Like I get it. It is the definition of painful. It may not injure you, but it hurts.
In all seriousness with Derrick Henry, this is like a guy where as he's starting to reach the end of his career, like this is a guy, he's on a rival team, yeah, but you really need to appreciate what he's done, how he plays, because there's a chance we don't see another Derrick Henry type ever because those guys play DN now. Like Derrick Henry types don't play running back. Guys that tall go outside receiver, learn how to run routes, or if they're stiff in the hips, they go play the end. Like, can you even think of a running back who's over 6'2" in college football right now?
Yeah, it's not the style that's favored in college. So that definitely makes it less likely we'll see him. Yeah, that raises an interesting question of like, who would you call a generational player that's in the NFL right now? As theoretically, there's always going to be a handful of guys that you might say that about. He's one of the few I would say that about.
Oh yeah, I mean he's a unicorn amongst unicorns. Like he's the black unicorn out of all the other colored unicorns that are out there. I mean he's just been that good and that special.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah.
Myles Garrett is honestly he's one of them. That's when you see how he like goes up and under some guys like that's
freaky.
And the thing is he's like 290. Like he does because you'll see guys in college hit really slick moves, but then he'll go and he'll lift up a 300-pound tackle from the chest. It's like that's a
I don't love him playing wide nine. I mean, I trust Jim. Jim Schwartz is a good coordinator, as good as it comes, good as it gets for a defensive coordinator. But I don't love the idea of him as wide nine because I feel like it takes some of the tools out of his toolbox for those inside counters and other stuff he's bull rush stuff he's totally capable of doing, because it seemed like he gets really locked into I'm so far outside and you're getting rid of it so quick that my only option is just try to beeline for the quarterback, make a bend and try to get to him as quickly as I can. So yeah, that's I think I'm not sure about that strategy for as far as using him, but they seem to that defense seems to rely on the threat of him more than him actually doing stuff. But apparently he's going to set the sack record. So I guess I'm wrong.
As you said that, I thought of it. Fred Warner.
Yeah, no. So to me, my list is I almost would start with Fred Warner because those guys, they don't linebackers that do everything like that. But we are having a resurgence in the league of players like that because you have Zach Bond, you have
Diane Henley. He played a hell of a year.
Schlesinger looks like he fits that mold pretty good, and Campbell.
You want to know how how good Fred Warner is because everyone like he's the standard, right? And you'll see people talk about it online all the time. We only got like one or two good linebackers in the league. It's like, no, you're just like so spoiled with how good Fred Warner is at everything that everyone else looks like bad compared to him.
Yeah. And I think as linebackers go, he's very unusual that way. I would say Patrick Mahomes is, pretty unicornish. It's not about necessarily the physical gifts that Josh Allen or Lamar Jackson have, but it's just, the it of playing quarterback. I do think it's like he had a down year. People want to talk about how it's like the run is over or whatever, but like that guy's got a long way to go yet. So at any rate, yeah, there's, I'm sure that Trent Williams, maybe, although he's, at the tail end of his career.
Yeah, but like you said, though, if we're talking about like guys that we know are going to be in the Hall, I mean, we know he's going to Hall of Fame. He's been so good.
Aaron
for
Rodgers
so
is going
long.
to the Hall of Fame, whether we think he's elite of the elite. So he's still, does not necessarily playing like unicorn level now.
Mm-hmm.
But
it's almost at this point you have to be like so. Like Mahomes, there's going to be guys with like his arm and his arm talent. Like his arm talent was like in rare air, but you're seeing guys now in high school like dudes can rip it. Now can they be cerebral like him? With Derrick Henry and like Myles Garrett's just like a one of one one of one on this earth athlete. Like that's where TJ Watt, like there's going to be guys who can play like TJ Watt that'll come around probably within the next 6 or 7 years where there's going to be guys who have a motor and can bend and all that stuff. But it's like Derrick Henry, that's one where it's just like you may never see a running back like him again in the NFL, at least for like a long time.
Yeah. Although teams are the NFL, not college, the NFL is definitely moving towards trying to attack some of these speedier, smaller defenses with more of the power run game.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I don't know that there's a lot of guys out there who are ready to step in those shoes.
Yeah.
And again, it's not like he's like being as big as he is and as fast as he is. It's not like he's not an athletic freak either. Like Gary, you don't get 6'4", 250-pound backs who can run like he does.
Yeah. Najee Harris, of course. But yeah.
Right.
Don't even.
Derrick Henry with a freaking trailer hitched to the back.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly, carrying a ball and chain.
Well, and since we're on the topic of some other players around the league, there's still a few NFL games that actually matter coming into Week 18. There's a few seeding ones. We'll talk about the first one here. Seattle has to go to 49. It has to go to San Fran to stave off and make sure that they get to keep the number one overall seed in the NFC. Right now, Seattle is favored by 1. Korey, I'm going to let you start on this one.
I feel like it's real hard to pick against San Fran after what we just watched. If they have the offense rolling how they did there, they're gonna mow down the Eagles. They're gonna mow down anyone in the NFC. Now that's a high bar, but if that's the game for them to get right, and like you mentioned it last week, Jeremy, when teams got something to play for and in the last week of the season, it kind of helps them sometimes. If they could get that ball rolling here and like put a real big stamp on the year, I feel like that would be. I think they're going to do it. I think they're going to have another huge week. I'm going to go with the Niners.
Well, and it was such an incredible game that we got to see the other night too between the 49ers and the Bears.
I can't believe you're allowed to score that much in an NFL game. It's crazy.
I know. Well, you know what? Someone I can't remember who said it. Maybe I caught it on Twitter. Maybe it was Collinsworth. I doubt it though. Someone said, it's amazing what happens when you have two offensive coaches, like 2 top 5 offensive coaches going at each other with the level of talent that is on each defense. Like there are good players on those defenses, but those offenses just found every way to move the ball possible. And not only do that, but do it consistently. And like every drive, like you said, Will, I think that was the first game in years where a team literally traded back-to-back scores till 35-35. Like
it's only the second time in NFL history the game was tied at 7, 14, 28,
That's what I'm thinking of. Thank you for
And it was
clarifying
the
that.
only other game was, you'll remember this game was a memorable game when the Denver Broncos in a playoff game were favored to go to we thought they had the great team. They're going to go to the Super Bowl. I think that was Peyton Manning, maybe, or maybe it was the year before Peyton Manning, but they got upset in a game where it was the last second score by the Ravens and Joe Flacco beat them. But that was the only other time that's happened.
Yeah. So just rarefied air for how like amazing that game was to watch. But it's hard for me to pick a winner this game. One, it's going to be really close. You've got two division winners. This is the right to host every playoff game. I'm kind of going to go with Korey on this one, though. I think the 49ers find a way to pull it off at home, because they're actually one of the rare teams that might actually get to host every game in a playoff, because the Super Bowl's out in San Fran.
Well, that's what I was going to say. That's a tremendous prize to play for, is not just the week off and not just every potential playoff game at home, but then the fact that you would be home for the Super Bowl as well.
Right.
That's enough incentive, to go for it. Also, it's no small. I'm sorry. I picked up.
I'm going to San Fran. Go ahead.
The other thing about this game is it's a short week, right? So it's a Saturday game. It isn't that much shorter, but the advantage of being home already and playing a game at home on Saturday is a big advantage compared to Seattle, who played on the East Coast and had to come home and then back to San Francisco on a short week. That little bit is probably just enough to make a difference. I think Seattle's defense is better than the Bears' defense, but their offense is not as good as what the Bears are doing right now on offense. So I'll take the 49ers.
Yeah. One last thing on that real quick. Brock Purdy playing phenomenal ever since he got back. I mean, I like right now, I would put money on his continued ascension rather than Sam Darnold's ability to maybe not show up a week, where we've seen that, I think, twice maybe this year. So
Sam Darnold has fought back pretty good when he hasn't had his best stuff. Yeah. But it's just not all there. I mean, that's just obviously a weak point for them.
Yep. Let's keep it on the NFC side, because there's one more playoff spot that actually still needs to be determined. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers and the Carolina Panthers have to play to figure out who actually wants to win the NFC South. I'm looking for the game here. I don't know. Maybe I missed. Oh, here we go. So yeah, the game is in Tampa Bay. Looks like Tampa Bay is favored by 2.5. My screen just reloaded. Yeah. So Tampa Bay is favored by 2.5. I'm going to start off with this one. I think the Panthers go into Tampa Bay and actually win. The Panthers, they didn't really try to win the game this past week. Like once it got out of hand, they realized, I think we just have to go to Tampa Bay and win, because they ended up losing like 31-10 or something yesterday. Like it wasn't near as close as what I thought it was going to be, and I got to see the tail end of that. And it was like just the way they ended. It's like, okay, that they're just focused on next week. So I think they're going to be focused. I think they're going to give them their best shot. Just Tampa Bay is a little too up and down for me right now. I like the Panthers to pull it off and to back something I said in the preseason. Panthers finally have a decent coach to take care of more than a decently talented roster. Panthers end up winning this one and covering. Will, I'll throw it to you next.
I think it's very difficult to that if we just, doesn't matter what happens this week really, because all you have to do is just win next week. That I would say, and this is foreshadowing, I would say it's hard to get it back up again once you've sort of let that thought creep into your head. Mm-hmm. Teams that are desperate are always better. And I think that carries you well through the postseason. If you come in you come in being forced to play your best ball before you get in the playoffs, that's another thing that typically seems to benefit teams. Mm-hmm. That's why we see the runs of like the Giants and the Ravens in recent years. I have been wrong on Tampa and Carolina in every game this year, and the Bucs looked terrible last week. I would have said, I expect Tampa to win this game because they picked a better quarterback, but I'm going to pick Carolina because I'm going with the opposite. I'm Costanza-ing this pick. I don't feel like I can pick either of these teams well. Nice. I'm going to go with Carolina for no reason.
Okay. I do think Ted McMillan is going to be back in this one too. So I think that helps. I don't know if he played this past week or not, but
He had like one catch. I think he might have gone out with injury, or they just like pulled him quick. It was
I
one of the
think it was
two.
an illness thing
Yeah.
going into the game. But
By the way,
anyway,
the thing about last week, Bryce Young's performance was a little bit down because don't forget, Christmas is the busy season for elves. He was probably kind of worn out before Sunday.
oh my God, Will, bravo for sneaking one in. I love it. That's damn, you got me. That's a good one. Korey, what's your thought on that?
I'll say Bryce Young looked like he needed to be like damn near cut from the league. And then they got him Tet, and they got him, they kind of put a more competent coach around him. He's actually started to look a lot better this year. It's going to be interesting to see if he can keep building, because you can't really have a sophomore slump when you were horrible as a rookie.
Yeah.
So I'm kind of curious to see if he can just continue stacking onto this, because honestly, he's a real smart quarterback. Like you could see at Alabama, he did a lot and he was real cerebral. It just became a question of the talent when he was in the NFL. The league honestly needs more cerebral quarterbacks right now.
Yeah.
But I just have a hard time picking Carolina when I think the Bucks have all their dudes back. They have Igbuka, they have Bucky, they have Evan, they have all their dudes back. Yes, they played horrible last week, but I think with the better quarterback and the better roster, I just have a hard time picking against that in a must win. I don't think their coaching's bad, I don't think they have a bad coach. I think it's just they haven't put the pieces together, but I think that the more talented team's gonna grit through this year. But it'd be interesting to see what, Bryce Young could do in a playoff situation. I feel like Tech could probably have a big standout moment, but I think I'm gonna go with the Bucks to cover.
Okay, gotcha. Gonna throw a wild card at y'all. We're actually gonna pick some college games really quick before we get to the college football thing here, just very quickly, since there's some
favoritism on the show.
Maybe we'll see. We'll see. That there are some very highly anticipated games kind of midweek here. Let me find it here, but let's start off. Golly, I had it pulled up. Here we go. We're gonna start off with the game that's happening on New Year's Eve. Ohio State versus Miami in the Cotton Bowl. Korey, who do you have?
I've got Ohio State. That's going to be a roster in like 4 years when we look at like all the like second year all pros, and we're going to be like, yeah, that team was never losing. Props to Indiana for earlier in the year. I'm not picking that team to lose again. I think this is going to be a blowout. I think Carson Beck has a big freaking pumpkin game on national TV.
What's the spread in that game?
You know what? Hold on. I can pull that up. I don't have the
spread. I don't even gamble, and I might hop in if it's close. This might be a game that gets me back in it. Yeah. No way Carson Beck performs on this stage.
Yeah, let me see here.
Very unlikely, although Carson Beck is the Bryce Young of college football, in that he's got a lot of guys. He's got dudes around him. Got a great offensive line, a nice defense, very tidy. Couple of receivers that can play. Good running back is fantastic.
So it's Ohio State minus 9.5. That's the line.
That's not a lot.
No, I was going to say I feel like Miami might stay in the game. I don't know if it's a blowout. I think Miami might stay in the game for a while and keep it interesting. But yeah, like Ohio State is one of those teams where it's like what Georgia and Alabama used to roll out back in the day, where like their second, third wave of guys that comes in the game is still as good as your guys. So as the game wears on, they're going to just make plays towards the end because they're just deeper and more, they eventually are more rested than you. So yeah, I think I'll take Ohio State to win, but wouldn't surprise me if it's reasonably close.
Okay. I like Ohio State too. I think they're the second best team in the country for a reason. They were they were extremely tough for IU to kind of pull off a last minute win.
Yeah, Oregon's definitely a little bit better, but yeah.
Yeah.
I'm about to be provocative here real quick, Jeremy. Will, if you had the third overall pick and you could pick Tony or Jeremiah Smith right now, who would you pick?
Wait, good
one. I like this edition, Korey. Good call.
Yeah, I like it. I don't know. Like, is Jeremiah Smith going to be a better pro when he's less bored? Like, I mean, based on what I saw, if I'm just strictly going by tape this year, I'll take Tony. Yeah.
You want to know the thing that kind of bothered me? Because if you remember, the year we needed the corners was the year Marvin Harrison was like playing. Like that was
Right.
his that like I really am not a fan of all the retroactive, like, oh yeah, the only reason he run the Blitnikoff was because of his last name and the no, if you watched every play of these games, Marvin Harrison Jr. took every single Big Ten corner, drafted or not, and just raked him over the coals. So like maybe he hasn't had the start to the NFL season, and maybe people like neighbors over him. Like if that was your draft take, congrats. But it's like really irked me when people did not watch that season and like watch that dude shredded pro
Yep.
corners all year. Like that dude was a hell of a prospect.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But Jeremiah Smith has had a little bit of a down year, but like I said, I think I'm probably going to have a huge game in the playoffs because I feel like he was just sort of like cashing checks during the year, and then it's like, okay, ready to go. It feels
Yeah,
like
it's time to turn it on. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's time to like really up it up a level. And honestly, I think most of the year for Ohio State, outside of Indiana, maybe Michigan for a half of football, they didn't really play a lot of tough football this year. So, I felt like all year they were just kind of going through the motions. They were just naturally more talented than everyone. They knew they were going to win ball games, but now that the bright lights are out, the level of competition's up, I think you're finally going to see their best bet. I think the only thing that will be very interesting for Ohio State is obviously Brian Hartline got hired down in South Florida. He's not calling plays, so I don't know whether that's going to be a plus or a negative. It could really go both ways. A new play caller with no stats on tendencies and different things he may want to do. That might be a real thing, or could be a little more wet and green behind the ears and maybe just not as smooth getting stuff in and whatnot. So it'll be interesting to see what happens, but I expect Ohio State to kind of roll through this one pretty thoroughly. I don't think
Miami pass rush against, Salen's like, young quarterback. I'm not sure that he's really faced a lot of pressure this year based on who they played. And Mesidor, like that back, you put your attention on Ruben Bain, and then the guy coming from the other side will just mess with your day. So that is one thing I think that keep Miami in the game a little bit. Miami's ability to run the football, which I think they'll be able to do a little bit, and their ability to get at the passer is both of those things they're very good at. So that makes me think they could keep it close.
Yeah. Another name on that Miami defensive line that I'm actually watched a little tape on lately, Ahmad Moten. Remember that name? I think he's a lot better than what people are giving credit for, just because he's not the name down there, but very solid defensive tackle. Like him a lot, just off the little I've seen. Let's go to the Orange Bowl next. Texas Tech at Oregon, or well, not at Oregon, but I'll start off in this one. I think Oregon ends up running away with this. I really do. I don't think Texas Tech really has the offense to keep up with Oregon, and Oregon has kind of been running on all cylinders lately when it comes to their offense. It's another big game where Dante Moore, if he can just mitigate the Texas Tech front seven edge rush, or just front seven rushing in general, I think Oregon's going to light up the scoreboard kind of like they have here recently. So I like Oregon to win big. The line there is Oregon by 2.5. I would definitely take Oregon by 2.5 and more to win outright. Korey, I'll throw it to you.
I don't know how much Wildcat quarterback is Jacob Rodriguez going to play.
You're right. That's the one wild card I didn't really think of.
I think Oregon's just a bit more talented. That's Texas Tech's fun. They're going to be a team to watch because they have a lot of NIL to throw. And in a state like Texas, if you can get a couple of those guys who usually just go into Texas or usually go out to Georgia or wherever, if you get a couple more of those dudes to stay and you're getting good guys in the portal, which it looks like they've got a really good portal process. I've been talking about him for freaking 2 years now, Lee Hunter. Like when Lee Hunter went to Texas Tech over a lot of those other schools, I kind of raised an eyebrow, and he's been balling there. But seems like they have a good process where they're not just hunting stars and rankings off of 24/7 from 3 years ago. They're actually going for established talent. That's going to be a team to watch, but I don't think they're yours this year. I think it's still Oregon
Yeah, Will.
to cover.
Uh,
Yeah, okay.
I think it's just not a good matchup for Texas Tech. I think if they faced a team like, let's say, Notre Dame or Penn State of last year,
Mhm.
they were on their run. It's just like that's a more of an athletic profile matchup that fits what they do. Like in a slugfest, I'm taking Texas Tech. I think their defense is, front seven is pretty dang good that way. But yeah, this feels more like a shootout kind of a game, and they're not really suited for that.
Okay. Let's move on to the Rose Bowl, Alabama and Indiana. I won't start off on this one, Will. I'll let you start.
Well, I know you're going to pick Alabama for sure.
Mm-hmm.
No, I think Indiana. This is not a great year for Alabama, and I know they look. They were pretty. They played pretty well in their game against Oklahoma. But yeah, I think this is the end of the line for Alabama. Indiana is just a more solid team with a great quarterback, and they're extremely well coached. It was Signetti. He wasn't at Alabama recently enough to have recruited any guys that are there, but
No.
he's a
No.
Saban guy. Like that connection probably is enough for him to sort of understand what they're doing. But so I suspect that Indiana will be very prepared and have more talent than Alabama.
All right. And then I failed to mention it, but the line is Indiana by 7. So, Korey.
That's here's the not that Indiana isn't talented, but this is not a traditional like. There's still remnants of the Alabama dynasty recruiting in there. However, I think that shit, I played Signetti. I think that the coaching, like if you're gonna beat Indiana this year, where they've got a good quarterback who makes good decisions, they've got talent on the perimeter, and they've got like a hell of a defensive coordinator. Like to beat Indiana. We saw it in the Ohio State game. They came as close as anyone. You better have talent coming out the gills. Like you better be able to coach and you better be able to just like outdo their dudes sometimes. I just it's like if you flipped Mendoza and Simpson, then it would be a conversation. Like there's similar profiles. I'm sure we'll talk a little more about them in coming up, but I think Mendoza is just a lot crisper where it's just he makes better decisions. He makes a little more accurate, a little more just like cerebral. I think that's going to be a big difference is the quarterback play. I think that they're going to make it harder than anyone else has on Simpson to like figure out what to do on the line. I'm going Indiana here. I could see this being really tight. I'll say that. I could see this being like a real close game, but I think if you're going to beat Signetti with this roster he has this year, you better be a lot more talented than Alabama currently is.
Yeah, I'll go ahead and put my prediction out there. I'm going to have Alabama to cover, but not win. I think this will be very close as well.
Interesting.
I've been telling my friends all year long, and I don't understand why anyone has done it. If you're going to beat Indiana, what you need to do is you need to get our linebackers in coverage. I know our numbers say our linebackers are good in coverage. They're not phenomenal athletes, though. They're not. And if Alabama does what they did against Oklahoma, where they just go out and like almost play in a 4 wide thing or whatever, that they will have some matchups where I think they can win there. So I think that's the way to do it. And I think if you also attack our second best corner, Jamari Sharp, and whoever our nickel player will be, whether it's going to be that third linebacker, I think that's the way you beat IU.
Have they had the issues against teams with real running threats at quarterback?
I was gonna say that we do struggle with a little bit of a dual threat. So if Simpson does get out of the pocket, he can create a little bit. But in general, we've done pretty well with that. Like we did pretty decent with like Dante Moore, even though I know he's not a true dual threat. But like when we played Nico Imaliva earlier this year against UCLA, there were times where we couldn't get him on the ground. His legs hurt us or whatever. So a little bit of mixed results there.
Yeah.
But just two other things really quick. Our offensive line is probably as healthy as it's been all year. I think that's going to be a huge difference. The only thing I'm really interested to see is we have lost two defensive ends this year. Kellen Wyatt early in the year, who was playing very good, and we lost him in the Oregon game, and then we lost Stephen Daly here in the aftermath celebration of the Big Ten championship. He was literally hopping up and down. It looked like he broke his leg. It'll be very interesting to see what we do. I know we've had like 3 weeks to prepare for him not being there, but we still have to step up and play. We do have to get pressure on Simpson if we're going to win this game. So it'll be interesting to see what happens. I've got Alabama covering, but not winning. Then we've got Ole Miss and Georgia. Georgia's a 6.5 point favorite. Korey, I'll start off with you since this is kind of a Southern game.
This one's kind of tough in my opinion. Like this is I'm not a big believer in like Gunnar Stockton, and I don't think Georgia's got a lot of the dudes that they had 2 or 3 years ago, even in the backfield. Like I'm not really sure what happened. Georgia's recruiting, I don't know, it just seems kind of down, you know? Like it doesn't seem like they've got the same. I mean, you got to remember they had the pipeline of backs for years. They always had at least one uber talented dude at receiver. Not to say they don't now, but it's just not the same. With that being said, I am a little intrigued with Ole Miss right now because there's a lot of Lane Kiffin, like they're playing for something. Like they're playing to prove right now because Lane Kiffin said some shady stuff. And honestly, on that whole situation, I'll be really quick on this. I don't think what Lane Kiffin really did was wrong. He wanted to coach out the year. The boosters and stuff had an issue with it. You really saw the same thing happen with Tulane. Like, I don't get why. Like, it makes sense to want to finish the year out coaching. But that's outside the point. I think Ole Miss has the talent where I feel like if they especially get a jump early, this could be like a shootout. And, I'll pick the upset. I'm going to pick Ole Miss here. I think Chambliss might have a real big game. I think that even if, God forbid, something has Chambliss, they got another bullet in the chamber where they're not going to be afraid to switch to it. I feel like they've just got a couple. They're playing with more to gain, I guess, than Georgia. And I think just Georgia's a little down. So I'm going to take Ole Miss here.
All right, Will, what are your thoughts?
Oh, I think this might be a very entertaining game.
Mm-hmm.
But Georgia strikes me as that team that you don't really – nobody throughout the year was like, yeah, Georgia's going to win the national championship. They're like they beat everybody they had to beat, and they don't have necessarily a lot of big names. But I think in a way that's an advantage when you go into the playoff because it's harder to stop teams that just are solidly good and they don't necessarily have. We got to stop this guy. So that always makes me feel like that means you're winning with a good defense and just a solid offensive plan. Which when you have more talent than the other team is going to carry you a long way. And I kind of feel like Mississippi is at its base a little bit based on a gimmicky offense. So I do feel like Georgia has the dudes to just sort of wear down Mississippi a little bit. But this could be a game that's a nail biter, and we'll have to see if Gunnar Stockton really has it in him. Because I do think that, Trinidad Chambliss has had a hell of a season coming in from basically from nowhere into the SEC and got this team in the playoffs. So I'm not gonna count that out, especially with a little chip on the shoulder of Lane Kiffin leaving. So yeah, upset watch definitely in effect. It'll just be, I feel like it'll be sort of a disappointing. Well, Georgia, held on in the end, and all of the top seeds win. Like that feels like the pattern the playoff is in.
Yeah.
I'm going to go with Korey on this one. I think Ole Miss kind of has a little, the chip on their shoulder. I think they are so tired about hearing about Lane freaking Kiffin. For I don't care if you think he's a good coach or not, but he's that personality out there, whether he was right or wrong in what he did or the situation. Like this team still has something left to prove out there. Like everyone knew they were going to be 2-0. Everyone knew, I'm not saying Tulane didn't have a chance or whatever, but everyone thought Ole Miss was going to win that game. Most of America thought that was going to happen. This is the first game where I think they finally are going to get really challenged. So I like for them to win, but well, I guess they would cover because they'd be getting 6.5. So winning cover here, but I think it'll be like a last second type of win thing. Like Trinidad Chambliss pulls off some stupid move to get free and throws a ball to an open guy who shouldn't be open, and they get a field goal to win the game. Like that. That's the type of game I feel like this
Miracle
is
win they'll be talking about for a week. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think the way Georgia wins this is they kind of grind the ball and like get the ball out of the Ole Miss offense's hand. And Stockton can do that because he's a big, physical kind of runner. So
no, they're looking for the boring, grinded out win.
Yeah. All right, now that let's switch back to our 5-star matchup in the NFL. The Baltimore Ravens have to come to Pittsburgh to see if they can win the North. I'm going to start off on this one. I think Pittsburgh will win. This is going to be one of the most ugly AFC North Pittsburgh Baltimore games you've ever seen in your life, because it's going to be like this could literally be one of those scoregami games or whatever. It's going to be like 12-2 or something, something really stupid. But no, in all honesty, I think Pittsburgh is going to do 17-14, and it's going to come down to a Boswell field goal at the end of the game. It's going to be a cold game. I looked; it's only going to be like 31. So with some wind apparently, so it'll be a cold, brisk game. I like Pittsburgh to win, kind of grind out a really freaking ugly one. 17-14 Pittsburgh. Korey, I'll throw it to you.
I've had some peaks and valleys this year on my predictions, but
top 10 in the score game on Steeler Fury.
That's unbelievable. But I felt like there was like a 10-week period where I picked everything wrong. But I got to stick with my prediction from last week. The Browns or the Ravens were gonna win, then we were gonna lose, and then we come back out and we win some stank ugly AFC North football game, and then squeak our way in the playoffs, and then look like shit in the wild card. I think Jeremy's right. I'm going to say, I don't know, 16-14 Pittsburgh off of the back of a touchdown and 3 Boswell field goals, something like that. I think it's going to be Derrick Henry, I think, is going to run the ball a lot, and I think we're going to hold him to 4 yards a carry. I think we're going to limit the big gains. It's going to be they're probably going to win TOP as hard as we try. But I feel like, again, maybe a special teams play. Maybe Gainwell just gets something big. This really isn't like a prediction based off of personnel. It's how the Steelers have played the last couple years. And I feel like they did their part last week in making it harder than it needs to be. And then they're going to do their part this week. And then I don't care who we play, I'm picking a loss in the wild card.
Let's wait. Patience, young grasshopper.
If you think Cleveland's defense and Myles Garrett is a problem, wait till you see Houston's defense. That's all I have to say.
Oof, yeah. Will, what's your thoughts on this?
I think you guys are in the right score range ballpark, basically, but I'm picking a slightly different result. I just feel like this is a game where both teams are going to want to try to run the ball a lot and get it to their tight ends. And I just think I'm going to pick the team with the better running game and tight ends. That's what it really boils down to. No Darnell Washington really hurts because there's no DK Metcalf. That whole thing of the previous game where you could stretch them a little bit and get them out of the box, having to worry about double teaming DK and having to play too high. That was definitely helpful in that game, at least for a little while. I just don't. I mean, I hear Korey on the narrative the script that they usually follow, but I just don't. I'm not sure that either one of these teams is really going anywhere long term in the playoffs, but somebody is going to have to really shut down Derrick Henry for that to happen. And I feel like they're on sort of a Derrick Henry roll right now. So it's hard to believe that the Steelers are going to be the team to stop that. I think they've all year have been okay, average or slightly below average against the run, statistically. So it sort of feels like that's not a good place to be with the way the conditions are. They're not going to turn it into a shootout. That game in Baltimore, was a real anomaly, and maybe they're going to come out with that mentality like, hey, I don't care that we don't have DK Metcalf. We're going to attack this team the way that we beat them last time, and try to hit them when they're not paying attention early in the game, stuff like that. But yeah, I kind of feel like this is a close game until the end. So let's say it's 17-13 somewhere in the fourth quarter. The Steelers have the ball down 17-13, but that they get stopped, and Baltimore puts it away with the dagger touchdown from Derrick Henry, and it's 24-13. Ravens win, unfortunately.
I'll ask this real quick. Not predicting what we want to happen, but predicting what are the odds that Tomlin gets fired if we lose this by less than 5 points? And then what are the odds if we give up like 300 yards rushing to Derrick Henry and we lose by like 4 touchdowns? Like, what's the difference in like those two things and what happens to Tomlin?
Well, first off, I don't think he's going to get fired no matter what happens. He's not getting fired. The Steelers' way would be to convince him that it's in the best interest of everybody if he steps away.
Yeah.
It saves a little bit of face for him. It saves a little face for the Steelers, and it maintains their draft pick rights or value in case he decides he's going to go to TV for a year or two and then come back and coach. Steelers would still get compensation. So I think that's the most likely outcome. If he's not the head coach next year, it'll be because something like that happened.
Well, okay, assuming.
But as far as what you said,
yeah, parting ways. We'll call it.
Will Tomlin be forced out if he loses a close game this week? I don't know. It's like it's worse. It'd be worse to get blown out. I would say, I'll put it this way: no matter what the score is, if the Ravens out-Steeler the Ravens in this game, in other words, if they run it down their throats and win a game that maybe was close for a little while but didn't end up that way or whatever, however you want to slice it. Yeah, I think he's probably forced out simply from the fact that that's the identity of the Steelers is everything to the Rooneys, But it's a new day. Maybe what really happens is that Tomlin stays and Art Rooney steps down. Like it could be a plot twist like that. I don't know, but Jeremy, what do you think?
Well, I think if we just get shellacked, for some reason, then yeah, there's going to be massive overhaul change. Like if I know I made this analogy earlier the year, but
I'm sorry, I'm laughing because you know why I'm laughing? Because think about how last season ended. We got shellacked. They ran it down the Steelers' throats, which is the thing that I said would really be the trigger. You said shellacked, which is what happened to them against the division rival. It was like everything. How much change happened?
None, but I think if you have
some, but like nothing really, not with Tomlin and Rooney. Sorry, go ahead, Jeremy.
Yeah, no, you're right. You're right. Unfortunately, if it's a shellacking, then yeah, I think you could see Art Rooney step down, the other Rooney take over. I think it's a Dan Rooney now. I'm not sure that
it is Dan.
I'll say this Rooney. From what I've heard, he is much more modern thinking. Like I think the real turn of the Steelers will happen when he takes over. Like when I was down in the Hula Bowl and stuff, and I talked to a couple people, he was always there for one, which tells you a little bit in its own right.
Mm-hmm.
But it's really more so that he is very modern thinking. Like he is very he wants to be the cutting edge, which is something we haven't had in
a long time.
He was a quarterback. He was an analytics guy that went to Princeton. He was interested in technology and sports. So right away it's like there's some advantages in terms of the mindset that he could possibly bring. And he's just younger. I think it's just a young man's sport right now in terms of like who is coaching, who is building teams, who is really doing cutting edge, the stuff that matters. You see those two coaches last night, or you see, any game with Sean McVay, and it's like those dudes are cerebral. They're owning the NFL, or they're challenging the NFL in a way that the NFL hasn't been challenged in years. The days of the old recycled coaches being the hot coaching candidates are gone. Liam Cohen ruined that. I mean, it's over.
Yeah. But yeah, so Dan Rooney would step in. We do a thing with that Seattle tried to do with Pete Carroll last year. Oh, we're going to make you an executive. And then Pete Carroll gets, hired by, Vegas, 2 months later or whatever. Yeah, I would expect big time changes. If it's a close game, no, I mean we're running it back.
Yeah, but here's the thing: if
again,
it's a close
so,
game, then the next week they're going to get killed.
yeah,
Unless something weird happens, like Jacksonville loses to Tennessee, and then suddenly we get Jacksonville. Maybe they could win. They might be able to beat the Jags, but
yeah,
like Houston's defense feels like just like the Cleveland game of last week all over again, except for a better quarterback and offense on the other
yeah.
side.
Well, thank you all for tuning into another episode here for the Steeler Fury podcast.
If you're still here and you haven't slit your wrist yet,
yeah, right. I'm your host, Jeremy Kohlman. You know me as Smith Smoke on the message boards, joined by Korey Karbowsky, you know him as Korey39, and Will Masisak, you know him as Bradshaw to Ben, and Accidental Zen on Twitter.
You know me as Fire Tomlin.
Yeah, as Fire Tomlin. But I will say this, and this is how we'll end it. Will this be Rodgers' last stand or not? You know, I think, you know, we could end up getting a historic, I don't know about historic game from him, but this very well could be the last time he plays, you know, in the NFL. So obviously, you know, our game is going to hinge on what he can do with the quick passing game and, you know, with the lack of, you know, overall weapons. I don't know who we're going to have. Maybe Calvin Austin's back or whatnot, but hopefully Rodgers can put together a show for us and we can talk about a win next week instead of what the offseason will look like. So here we go, Steelers. Hopefully we find our way into the playoffs.
Here we go, kids.